You're listening to the Shaughnessy Group podcast, insights on buying, selling, and growing Canadian businesses in the lower middle market. Let's begin.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are tackling, well, probably the single most important document a business owner might never actually write.
The plan to walk away.
Exactly. We're going to cut right through the complexity of securing the financial and the operational future of a business. We know that, transition and leadership succession planning is something every owner thinks about. But here's the real tension we found in the material from the Shaughnessy Group.
What's that?
Having a thought, an idea about retirement or who takes over next. Well, it's miles away from having a documented, actionable, and funded plan. So let's unpack that difference.
That is the key distinction.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely essential for the main goal here, which is maximizing your own personal financial security while at the same time guaranteeing the business stays healthy and viable.
Okay.
And to do that, you have to separate two concepts people are always mixing up: ownership transition and leadership succession.
And getting those two confused is a problem.
It's the first step toward disaster.
All right, so let's clarify that right away for you listening out there. What exactly is the difference? Let's start with leadership succession planning. What is that?
Okay, so leadership succession is all about the operational heartbeat of the company. It's a systematic process for identifying the really critical roles.
The ones that if they were empty tomorrow, everything would grind to a halt.
Precisely. You find those roles, define the core skills needed, and then you identify internal candidates who could assume those roles when the current leader leaves. And that could be a planned retirement or, a sudden crisis.
So this is all about the internal talent pipeline. And the Shaughnessy Group sources, they had a really fascinating point here about transparency.
He did.
They noted that this kind of planning is often managed as a closed process. The candidates don't even know they're on the list. But the sources argue this is probably not good for the business or the individual.
Right. And it's a huge problem. It sounds good in theory, right? You avoid office politics, maybe some premature demands for a raise. But in reality, a closed process creates massive operational risk. If a candidate doesn't know they're being groomed for a future role, you can't properly invest in their development.
You can't give them the training they need.
Exactly. You risk their skills getting stale. But even worse, if they feel undervalued or they aren't sure about their future with you, they become a flight risk.
And then they walk across the street to a competitor.
And they take all that potential you developed right with them.
That makes perfect sense. So transparency actually helps with retention. Okay, let's flip to the other side of the coin. Ownership transition planning. What does that mean for the owner who's looking for an exit?
Ownership transition is the financial and legal blueprint. It determines the ultimate future of the business itself. This is where you focus on how ownership will be smoothly transferred.
So like a sale or an employee buyout.
An external sale, an ESOP, an internal transfer to partners or family, yes. The plan focuses on maximizing your personal financial security, minimizing taxes, and, this is key, protecting your retirement assets.
So we have two tracks. Leadership succession is the engine room. It's who runs the company.
Right.
And ownership transition is the financial deck. It's who owns the company.
That's a great way to put it. And they absolutely have to be defined together, but they are not the same job. If you only plan for succession, you could have a perfectly run company.
But no money for the founder who's leaving.
Exactly. No financial security. And on the flip side, if you only plan the financial exit, you might sell a company that looks great on paper, but has huge operational risks because there's no talent ready to take over.
And either way, the value of the business plummets.
It diminishes massively.
That really crystallizes the urgency. But if it's so critical, why do so many business owners put it off? Why is this a get around to it later task?
It's human nature, I think. We focus on the fire that's burning right in front of us, not the one that might start in 10 years. Owners just assume they have time. But the source material really emphasizes this needs to be a living process that starts as soon as possible, not some static document you write on your way out the door. And this is where the source's analogy becomes so powerful.
Okay.
A thought in your head transition plan is not a plan at all.
So what is it?
It's a dream at best, and as far as dreams go, a potential nightmare.
Wow. That phrase is powerful. The nightmare scenario is basically leaving your legacy, your wealth, your family's future just completely up to chance.
Completely. Imagine this scenario. An owner, we'll call him Gary, he decides in his head he's going to sell to his 3 partners in 5 years. He thinks he'll have the cash.
A pretty common dream, I'd imagine.
Very common. But 5 years go by, nothing's formalized, the price was never set, and critically, no funding mechanism is in place. No buy-sell agreement, no key person insurance, nothing.
The dream is still just a thought.
And now Gary's exit requires a frantic, expensive last-minute sale that just shreds his retirement security. The dream became a nightmare.
So documentation provides the clarity. But the real power is in the implementation and funding of the plan.
That's it. You have to put the legal and financial tools in place to actually execute it. Otherwise, it's just a wish. The documentation is the map, but funding and implementation are the fuel in the tank.
Okay, so let's shift from the why to the how. If we commit to this, what are the essential practical things that need to be in the plan?
Well, you start by defining what success even looks like. The plan has to clarify your goals and vision. And this isn't just picking a retirement date.
It's deeper than that?
Much deeper. Is your priority getting the maximum cash payout? Or is it more important to maintain the company culture? Or your family stays involved? If you don't define those goals first, the rest of the plan can't be structured correctly.
Okay, so goals first. What's next?
Second, you have to focus on maintaining value. A business that's ready for transition is just inherently more valuable. This means getting specific tax strategies in place to prepare for a sale.
When you say tax strategies, is that just about minimizing capital gains?
It's broader than that. It's about structuring the sale or the transfer in the most tax-efficient way, maybe using staggered sales or specific entity structures to protect assets. If you wait to the last minute, a lot of those legal options just disappear.
Got it. And the third element was about people, the key employee assessment. How is that different from just a standard HR review?
This is a risk management assessment, not a performance review. It's a critical piece of due diligence. You have to identify your single points of failure.
A person who knows where everything is buried.
Exactly. The employee who holds all that institutional knowledge that no one else has, you have to figure out their specific impact. If they left tomorrow, how long would it take the company to recover? A buyer will want to see a plan for that risk.
And doing all this work brings, as you said, peace of mind for the owner and the company. So that leads to the things we can't foresee, the events that force the plan into action. What are those big catalysts besides just planned retirement?
Yeah, if you look at this purely through a risk management lens, the sources detail 4 main catalysts. 3 are external, and 1 is, well, it's entirely self-inflicted.
Okay, what are the external ones?
The big ones are the sudden death of an owner or a partner, an unforeseen divorce, where a spouse might have a claim on the business, and sudden mental or physical incapacitation from an injury or illness.
Right, all things completely outside of your control. And if the plan isn't ready and funded when one of those hits, the whole business is instantly vulnerable.
Instantly. If a partner dies and there's no funded buy-sell agreement, you could suddenly be in business with their spouse who might have no interest, or worse, you're tied up in probate court just trying to keep the doors open.
And the fourth one, the self-inflicted one.
That is simply the sin of ignoring it all. If you ignore this living process for long enough, time itself becomes the catalyst that destroys value.
So once the blueprint is created, we have to talk about communication. You obviously can't tell everyone every single detail. How should an owner handle that?
The plan has to be communicated as a living framework. That's the key phrase. It cannot be a rigid final decree written in stone.
Because things change.
Constantly. Companies, markets, tax laws, people, they all change. A rigid plan from 10 years ago could actively harm the business today. You have to have flexibility.
Okay, but flexibility can create uncertainty. What if stakeholders disagree on the future? How does a living framework handle that?
That's a great question. The framework's goal is to align the process, not every single person's dream outcome. Communication has to be clear about the mechanisms and timelines, and you build in regular reviews to adjust as things change. If there's a major conflict, those documented goals you set at the beginning, what the owner prioritizes, that acts as the tiebreaker.
And who are these need-to-know stakeholders? Who needs to be in the loop?
It's the people whose lives are immediately impacted. So your business partners and fellow shareholders, of course, your spouse and adult children, especially if they have any financial interest. And finally, and this is critical,
Let me guess.
your internal successor candidates.
Back to the transparency point.
Exactly. It all ties together. You have to communicate with them not just about their current job, but about the long-term plan. That transparency is what builds their engagement and secures their loyalty through the whole process.
Speaking of securing things, this whole deep dive relies on the pretty exhaustive experience of the Shaughnessy Group. What kind of background are we tapping into here?
What's really compelling is the operational depth. We're talking about decades of hands-on experience across the entire business lifecycle. Startups, growth, complex restructurings, M&A. They aren't just consultants, they've been in the trenches.
During some pretty volatile times.
I mean, they've led organizations through some of the biggest economic crises in modern history.
Yeah.
Think about managing through Black Monday in '87, the global financial crisis in 2008, and of course, the shocks of the 2020 pandemic.
So they've stress-tested pretty much every financial and leadership plan you can imagine.
Absolutely. And importantly, all this experience is specifically focused on the lower middle market. This isn't theoretical advice for a Fortune 500 company. It's practical, actionable insight for that mid-sized business owner.
So if we pull all of this together, the need to separate the two plans, the urgency of writing it down, the key elements, communication, what is the core insight you want our listener to walk away with today?
The takeaway is this. Transition and succession planning is not some item on a checklist you can put off. It is the highest level of immediate risk management an owner can undertake. If you have that dream of a successful exit, you absolutely must follow through by implementing and funding the plan.
Or the dream becomes the nightmare.
Or that dream becomes the nightmare scenario you were trying so hard to avoid.
A perfect summary.
Ew.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on. Since those successor candidates are need-to-know stakeholders, and we know a closed process is bad, where do you draw the line? How much do you tell them to keep them engaged without giving away so much detail that it destabilizes your current management team? It's a real balancing act.
It is, and one that needs constant attention within that living framework.
Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into securing your business's future. We really want to thank the Shaughnessy Group for providing these essential insights. If you want to dive even deeper, you can download the checklist mentioned in the sources and access more resources by visiting their website, shaughnessy.group.
Thanks for having me.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not professional advice. Consult qualified advisors for your specific situation.